Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Eric with SweetSpotDFS, and welcome to my DFS preview for the 2022 Farmers Insurance Open. As always, we're going to be talking about the tournament. We'll look at the golf courses involved, and then we're going to dive into past optimal lineups and the bucket system. Because here at SweetSpotDFS, we're always in pursuit of the optimal lineup. And what a better tool than the bucket system to target this optimal lineup. And without any further ado, I'm going to get right into this. I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to start with giveaways. I've been trying to run the subscriber giveaway for 3 weeks now. We have not yet hit the goal of 275 subscribers. So I'm going to up it from $10 to $20. One of you guys or girls will win $20 if we hit that goal this week. So we're 4 away. If you're one of those that have not yet subscribed, please do so. And if you want a free entry, all you got to do, again, be subscribed, but comment down below your favorite 10K golfer. I've told you the last 3 weeks, you're going to need a 10K golfer. And each of those weeks, someone has won a GPP with a 10K golfer. So give me your favorite one. And if you don't want to, tell me why. Tell me why you don't want to start your lineups with a 10K golfer. And you'll get a free entry. And if you want an additional one, share it on Twitter or share it on any social media platform. You'll just have to screenshot it and send it to me just for proof. But I'm not on any of the other social media platforms except for Twitter. So I will see it. If you retweet it, you'll get an additional free entry into this giveaway. The second giveaway is called the Prize Picks giveaway. And that's self-explanatory. Sign up with Prize Picks using the promo code SweetSpot and put $20 into your account. You'll get a free entry into this one. And your entry will never go away. So if I call a winner, it's not going to disappear. If your name isn't called, I'll put it into next week's giveaway, so on and so forth until it is called. So you almost look at it like you're going to win $20 no matter what. And the other sweet part of this is Prize Picks is going to match your deposit up to $100. So if you only put $20 in, they're going to double it to $40. And you win this giveaway, you're going to play Prize Picks for free. So highly encourage you to do so. There is a link in the description below. I'll get you straight to the sign up page with that promo code. All right, let's go ahead. Let's talk about this tournament. Again, Farmers Insurance Open. This was established in 1952. So this has been a main staple on the PGA Tour for a very long time. The field size 156 players, which is a full field event. Cut is T65 in ties. Average winning score -12. Average cut score is -1. Like, it teeters between even and -1 on most of the tournaments. I think the lowest the cut has ever been is -4. And I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago. But it's going to be around -1. It's a very strong strength of field. We got 499 according to the OWGR. I think it's 491 in my spreadsheet, so don't be confused if you see that. And it's going to be around 70 degrees, so pretty warm and not a lot of wind. Like, this tournament can get cold. It can be a cold tournament, especially next to the ocean. But with barely any wind, I bet it's going to feel okay in comparison to other years. And that's your Thursday, Friday weather forecasts. Of course, weather can change in a hurry. So I don't know. We're 2 days away. That's the other thing to mention here. This tournament starts Wednesday. It doesn't start Thursday. So make sure your lineups are set up before Wednesday morning. You'll get some time in the morning because it's a West Coast event. I think usually lineup block is like 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. That'd be like 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But be cognizant of that. There are 2 golf courses that will be played before the cut is made on Friday. Players will be playing the south and the north course of Torrey Pines. Both were created by William P. Bell, but I believe his son also helped with it, like with some renovations and stuff like that. His name is William F. Bell. So no matter what, if I put a William Bell on there, it's going to mean both of them. And it's kind of the reason why. And also, I don't have enough real estate to put both the names on there. Anyways, both golf courses are par 72s. One's almost 7,800 yards and the other one's about 7,300 yards. That would be your south and north course. The greens, if you look at the tournament fact sheets on GSCAA, we all know that those can be wrong. You know, we figured that one out last week at the American Express. It says POA and bent, but I've seen accounts that they're both POA, which interesting nonetheless. And this is the POA you would actually want to be looking at your putting splits, or just average finishes, stuff like that, because this is the real POA that's going to affect the ball as POA does. We have Kikuyu grass in the fairways and rough. I think the tees are Bermuda, but they're all overseeded with rye. And all that has to tell you is maybe during this time of the year, the Kikuyu doesn't really grow in as well as it needs to. The overseed here, okay, quick agronomy lesson. Overseed usually is, well, how it's usually done. You plug a bunch of holes into the golf course to extract a lot of the turf and also kind of loosen up the soil. You then fill it in with sand and seed, and usually that sand is your overseed. So now the more dominant grass will be your overseed grass. I don't think that's how it's done here. The Kikuyu is just going to be a natural grass that can grow. You know, what's good about Kikuyu is it withstands the salt from the sea, you know, because obviously the ocean's right next to it. So it's pretty resistant against that, whereas like Bermuda or bent grass will get eaten up by the sea salt that comes from the ocean. So Kikuyu can actually withstand that, and it's a pretty cool season grass. So my guess is the rye, the overseed rye, is just to be consistent, just to create consistent lies in the rough. Maybe it's just not a very good growing season right now, which obviously it's the winter time, so that probably would be fair. Just to give you guys a heads up, I don't think you really have to worry about the overseeded rye. Just think of it as Kikuyu, and plus rye plus Kikuyu, or even rye plus Bermuda, which I don't think you really ever have. It can create gnarly, thick lies. So just keep that in mind. If you look at the shot shapes, there aren't many that are required for either golf course. This one here is the south course. This one here is the north course. So I'll move my head and you can see, you know, at least for the north course, there aren't many shot shapes required. None off the tee and one fade on approach. Whereas at the south course, you have 3 holes that I think you need to draw on just for approach. And then a fade 2 holes off the tee and a fade 4 holes on approach. So if you want to target your fade golfers, I don't see an issue with that. But you don't necessarily need that. There aren't a lot of tree-lined holes at this golf course where I would require, like I would actually think you need a particular shot shape. The approach shots are just because some greens are shaped where it's really not accessible by a certain shot shape. So if you have like a pin that's tucked back right and there's a bunker in front of it, you're really not getting there with a draw. You're going to need a fade. Whereas the rest of the green can be accessed by any type of shot shape. So that's where I would say you require that kind of shot. But either way, it's just to be a tiebreaker. Has nothing to be an end-all be-all. You don't need to start your research that way. If it's like between Jordan Spieth or no, I should say this. If it's between someone like a Bryson DeChambeau or a Justin Thomas, you know, Bryson mostly draws the golf ball. JT mostly fades the golf ball. I would go with like JT in that scenario. Only if your model is very close and it's trying to choose between the two, you can use that as a tiebreaker. But that's enough for the golf courses and the tournaments, actually. We can go ahead and dive right into past optimal lineups. So we're going to start in 2018, right? Yeah, we'll start in 2018. The optimal lineup that I have would be the 6 golfers you see at the top. And the salaries for that would be 9K, 8K, and 4 7K golfers. You left $2,300 on the table, but if you know me, you know I don't like that. If you leave money on the table, you're opening up so many more combination of lineups to be built. So why don't we get as close to 50,000 as possible and limit the amount of lineups we can create? Most of the time when you do this, you still beat the GPP winning lineup and you're only a few points behind the optimal. So how I found it was I still picked someone inside the top 10. That was a 10K golfer. That was Justin Rose. We can go Justin, Day, and then 4 7K golfers. That equals 49,700. You could equally go like 2 9s, probably these 3 7s, and maybe an 8K. Yeah, so this would be $49,800. So you leave $200 on the table, which means you would use 2 9Ks, an 8K, and 3 7Ks. So keep that in mind. And we'll kind of track this as we keep going. In 2019, your optimal lineup only left $200 on the table. So it's perfect. We didn't have to create a realistic lineup. And what you had was a 10K in Justin Rose, like you would have had the year before. An 8K. We have a 10K, a 9K, 8, 2 7s, and a 6. That is your traditional lineup build. And the fact that it was the optimal lineup is a great sign, because I think that's where you want to start your builds. Do a 10, 9, 8, 2, 7, 6. And I have a video coming out in the future that's going to show that is the most likely lineup to not only hit the optimal lineup, but also win you a GPP. I think it's like 50% of lineups are 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. So play your odds. You're probably going to have a good lineup if you do it that way. I do have the GPP winning lineup that's on there as well, and it used a 10K. It's all these golfers that are highlighted in blue. So it used a 10, 8, we have 3 7s, and then we scroll down a little bit to get to our last guy, another 8K golfer, and that was Brandt Snedeker in 62nd place. So it just goes to show you can win a GPP with a guy outside the top 20. And I don't know, maybe it was just that year. He did have 3 guys in the top 3, which is obviously where you want to go. But yeah, let's continue on. In 2020, your optimal lineup included some people outside of the top 10. So then I created what I call a sweet spot optimal, which means all 6 golfers inside the top 10. But let's talk about the optimal first. It used an 11K golfer, 2 8Ks, a 7K, 6K, and another 7K golfer. That was $49,900, only left $100 on the table. That's your optimal. Now your $5 GPP winning lineup are all the golfers you see in blue, which are all on one page, which is a good sign. And he used an 11K, 9K, 8K, 7K, 7K, 6K. So there you go. Your 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. I highly encourage you guys to go that route. But the realistic optimal had obviously starts with a 10K John Rahm, which is really 11K, but we just count it as 10 and up. 11 John Rahm, 2 8Ks, a 7K, and 2 6Ks. Those are all 6 golfers inside the top 10 either greater than or equal to 49,000. I mean, I usually like to say over 49,000, but we can deal with 49,000. Over 49,000 and still beating the GPP winning lineup. So that Sweet Spot Optimal scored 610 points. The $5 scored 593. So we're still beating the GPP winning lineup with what I have on the screen. But if you want to go and not leave as much dollars on the table, you can go to like Bo Hosler for another 200. So it would be 49,200, and you would be losing 5 points on that. Still would beat the GPP winning lineup. But anyways, that was 2020. And then last year, your optimal lineup left $500 on the table. Started with Patrick Reed at 10K, went to 9, went to an 8, another 8 actually. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm following the wrong things. Black tick marks are optimals. So 10, 9, 6, 8, 6, 8. So 10, 9, 8, 8, 6, 6. Man, that was confusing. 10, 9, 8, 8, 6, 6. And there were the high 6s, not the low 6s, high 6s. And your GPP winning lineup used a 10K, a 9K, an 8K, another 8, a 6, and we scroll down a little bit, a 7. So that's kind of like a variation of the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. This one obviously 10, 9, 8, 8, 7, 6. Yeah, that's 6 players. I'm trying to count in my head. So pretty much very similar builds to get to the optimal or the GPP winning lineup. Each one of them started with a 10K golfer. Maybe not in 2018, but obviously we could get there with a 10K golfer. So yeah. Not only do I encourage you guys to do like a 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, you can float around some of those numbers. You know, you could go 10, 9, 7, 7, 7, 6, or even another 7, or 10, 9, 8, 8, 7, 6. We obviously saw that. But I think you're going to want a 10K, a 6K, and at least a 7K, if not 2 7Ks. That would just be my way of looking at it. And then if we dig a little bit deeper and go to the buckets, let me go ahead and hide some of the stuff because we never talk about it, but it's there. Top 5 frequencies, top 20, cut made frequencies. Just going to hide that. And that way we can see everything on one screen. Looks a little bit better. I want to put a filter on this, and I want to talk about the buckets by themselves. So just a quick reminder, the bucket system uses 6 stat categories. We're looking at last year's finishing position, last week's finishing position, course history, recent form, salaries, and strokes gained. I do have a bucket system video out there that explains this. If you go to my channel and you just search for bucket system, there will be an explained one that goes over all this. I'll also have a second one out not too long from now explaining that, but I don't want to spend that time explaining why we look at these stats. Let's just look at last year's finishing position, talk about the ones that matter the most. So since 2013, we've seen 33 instances where a golfer had a top 20 finish the year before finish inside the top 10 of that year's tournament. So right away, your number one bucket for last year finishing positions, 1st to 20th. And you can look at the min maxes. We've seen at least 2 every single year. You've also seen at least 1 in the optimal lineup every single year. I'm projecting somewhere between 2 to 4. Now, these will probably change because the field isn't full yet. Like on DraftKings, I haven't been able to download all the information. There's like 146 golfers in DraftKings pool. We're gonna have 156, so there'll be about 10 golfers added to that pool. That could change these numbers a little bit because it does look at how many golfers are in the bucket, but I don't think it's really going to affect this one. I still think we're gonna need somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers from here. Your number 2 bucket are actually golfers who missed the cut the year before. So if you're like trying to determine between 2 golfers, one who has, a 20, like say a 24th position. Actually, let's look. Let's just go to the spreadsheet. Let me hide this. So if we're looking just at the top guys, for instance, we can see Brooks Koepka here, who has an 85th place, and then we have Sung J M. If you're trying to determine between the two, between a 32nd place finish and a missed cut, which is what these 85s represent, if you come here, you can see the differences between them. Actually, was it 42nd? 32nd, sorry. So Sung J M falls under this bucket, that 20 to 40 place, and Brooks falls under this bucket, that 80 play or 80 plus, which is missed cuts. This bucket has a higher success rate. It also has a higher projection. We see more golfers finish inside the top 10 from this bucket than we do that 20 to 40 range. And I'm also including strength of field in my projections. So you can see what we have for projections right here. I have like 0 to 1 last year 4s, which is that 20 to 40 range. And I have 1 to 3 missed cuts. So I am projecting someone who missed the cut last year is going to be inside the top 10, at least one of them. And for optimal lineups, we've seen up to 2, but we also have seen up to 7 in 1 year finish inside the top 10. So keep all of that in mind. Your number 3 bucket, and I'm only going to talk about the top 3 buckets, are golfers who didn't play last year. Now, this includes rookies. This also includes people who have course history. I don't know the particular breakdown, but not playing the year before doesn't hurt you. We actually have 69 golfers in that bucket this year. We have 59 on average, so we have 10 more, and we're probably going to have more with the new golfers coming in, the 10 golfers yet to be added to the pool. So this projection might change a little bit. It might go from 1.5 to like 1.7, and this might go from 2.6 to 2.8. It might even go over 3, but I doubt it. So we're looking somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers from here. At minimum, we've seen at least 2 from this bucket, always inside the top 10. So if you just looked at the minimums of these buckets, we have 5 spots filled by those 3 buckets. And again, those would be top 20 finishes, you want at least 2. Missed cuts, you want at least 1 from last year. And then did not plays. So golfers who didn't play last year, you want somewhere between 1 to 3. But, you know, if you want to use the frequencies here for the minimum maximum, you want at least 2. I'm probably going to just say, just on the safe side, just do 1. So you have 4 positions already filled. Yeah, you do have kind of some bigger buckets to choose some of those golfers from, but just giving you a little head start here. When we look at last week buckets, now these are golfers who played in the American Express last year. The great thing about the Farmers Insurance Open, it usually follows the American Express. And if we were to just do a quick look in 2021, the American Express was the tournament it followed. Same in 2020, 2019, it did as well. 2018, it did as well. There was one year where the Waste Management Open was the year it followed. I think 2015. Yeah, Waste Management Open, but it's always been the American Express. So these buckets have continuity with them. It's a good thing to still look at. So your number 1 bucket are golfers who just didn't play last year. Or I mean last week, sorry. Last week. Did not play at the American Express. I'm projecting somewhere between 2 to 5. And on average, or I should say, yeah, on average, we see at least 4 golfers from this bucket finish inside the top 10 at this event. So I would say we're closer to that 4 number than we are the 2 number. And you might even be able to just start your lineups. We have 41 golfers in that bucket this year. It could be a little bit more, obviously, with the new golfers that will be added to DK's player pool. But either way, I think that just ups the projections a little bit, where we're getting closer to that 5 number. I think you start lineups that way. Your second ranked bucket here would be golfers who top 20 last week. So we have a limited amount of golfers there, 13 of them to be exact. We almost have exactly 1 as the minimum. I'm feeling confident we want 1. And if we take a look at that bucket, and I were just to look at last week 2s, you got a pretty good list of golfers. You can see this is the column we talked about last week finishes. John Rahm starts it off, and then it goes to Sung Jae, Will Zalatoris, and a ton of 7K golfers. So you want at least 1. Now, you could go the John Rahm route and then forget the rest of these guys. Maybe add a couple more, or maybe add 1. I wouldn't add more than 1. Or you skip these guys up here, and you pick your 7K golfers from here. So, like, say you like Wyndham Clark, boom. He's in your lineup. You can just say nay to the rest of these guys. Fill in your lineups with other golfers. So as we look, so that was your number 2 bucket. And again, I'm projecting somewhere between 1. I mean, this is 0 technically. We always round down, even if it's that close to a full number. We're always rounding down. So it's 0 to 2 is what I'm projecting. We've seen at least 1 inside the top 10 every single year, but you know, that might not be this year. And we're kind of projecting there is a risk. There's a 1% risk, in my opinion, a 1% risk. We're not going to get at least 1 golfer from that bucket inside the top 10. And then your third bucket are missed cuts. And this one's actually projected 0 to 2. We have seen 0 before, so it's not a very confident bucket to choose golfers from. And like none of the other buckets outside of top 20s and did not plays are confident buckets to select from. So we'll move on and look at, I think the most logical one would just be going to course history and then recent form. So when we look at course history, there's only 1 bucket that reigns supreme, and it would be that 40 to 60 range. And we're projecting somewhere between 2 to 5. We usually see 3. Now 40 to 60 is not good. When you think about course history, it isn't a good number, obviously. You'd want that one to be better if you're a course history person. But that includes these 3 10K golfers up here, and then not many 8 and 9K golfers, but a ton of 7K golfers, and then a ton of 6K golfers. So in my opinion, you might be able to find your lottery ticket down here with some of the 6K golfers. Probably want to look at the 7s. And if you do feel confident in some of these guys up here, then by all means, select them. I mean, we're projecting what, 2 to 5? So you can select up to 5. I mean, you could anchor a lot of your lineups with some of these 10Ks and 9Ks. Like a Matsuyama Burns lineup seems, like a pretty decent lineup to start with, and then maybe come down to some of these 7Ks, you know, like say something like this. Let's see, how much money do we leave on the table if we do that? Or how much money are we working with if we start this way? So we have 5 golfers selected. We're sitting at 42,700, so you can select a $7,000 golfer. 7,300 is your max though, which is okay. I mean, if you wanted to start 10, 9, 8, maybe. I mean, I'm not touching Matthew Wolff, but maybe we go 10, 9. Yeah, max home was good. 10, 9, 8. Now we have 43, 8. That means you can play a 6K golfer, but it's going to be a really low price 6K. Anyways, those are just options. I wouldn't really go this way. I'm not looking to hit the maximum. I'm going to at least select 2. I'll probably live in that 3 range most of the time, and then just go from there. The rest of the buckets, I should say, there is one other bucket that's actually pretty confident. Like there's a confident rating there. You want at least one golfer who is at 60 to 80 range. So let me go ahead and take that. I think that's this one, right? Yeah. And now you have Xander and Daniel Berger, some 9K golfers, but dropping to some 7s and mostly 6s, it looks like. I really like Joaquin Niemann there. If you wanted some kind of narrative, maybe Ricky Fowler is your play. You know, like everyone kind of liked him last week, kind of burned a lot of people. Here's a reason to play him. He's in that course history bucket where we want at least one golfer from. But it's probably Xander, if I'm being honest, right? I mean, a 2nd place finish last year, course history, he's in that bucket. So he fits 2 buckets that you want. Xander's not a bad play. The rest of them, use sparingly. I wouldn't go heavy on any of them. You know, having the best course history here doesn't really prove to be fruitful. I mean, we have 3 golfers that have top 20 course history here. Just kind of crazy. Yeah. Finau, Palmer, Jon Rahm. So here's a great point. I did this happened at the American Express. Jon Rahm was in a bucket that did not have a 1. It was like 0.7 to 1.4. I just thought Jon Rahm being in that bucket was just going to push it. He didn't finish top 10. He finished 14th place. So it's still a good finish. And he was also part of the GPP winning lineup. But if you're looking for all top 10s, maybe this is a reason to fade any of these 3 golfers you see on the screen. That's, you know, it would be all this course history right here. So maybe a good reason to fade them. Maybe not. Anyways, moving on. Looking at recent form next. Recent form buckets. This one looks like it's pretty much dominated. It's pretty free and open. No. Your number 1 bucket actually has one of the lower projections, and that would be that 40 to 60 range. I included recent form at this tournament because I think most of our field has at least 2 starts under their belt, and I kind of want that when it comes to recent form. If I'm also being kind of a critic of this, it might be too early to look at recent form. We only have 3 events under our belt. I usually like to look at the last 7 weeks for recent form. We can only look at a max of 3 weeks, and we don't even know if most of the players in the well, actually we can, right? The did not plays. We only have 21 golfers who have no recent form, but everyone has at least 1. Like the majority of golfers have at least 1 finish under their belt this year, which I think is okay. It's not great. Don't get me wrong. It's not great. So if you want to skip this recent form bucket, I have no issues with it. But you want to look at your top recent form golfers. Golfers coming in with decent recent form have good success here. The buckets kind of prove it out to be that way. You know, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of all these ranges, but anything better than, you know, 60th as your average finishing place is where you want to go. And you can kind of see the breakdown of the projections here. We'll talk a little bit more about this during the strategy video tomorrow. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about recent form buckets. We did talk about salaries, but to reinforce why you want a 10K golfer, it is your number 1 bucket. It has shown up inside the top 10. It's tied with your upper 6K range. For the most times, it's shown up inside the top 10, really since 2018, because that's when salaries first came out, or at least since I started recording them. But I also think since they first came out on DraftKings. So those would be your top 2 when it comes to frequency, but there's a higher success rate with your 10K golfers. than there are with those 6K golfers, and the projections are also pretty high. We're looking at somewhere between 1 to 3, almost really close to 2 to 3 when looking at 10Ks, whereas the 6K, because there's so many golfers in that bucket and it's not really high with strength of field, let's see here. Okay, perfect. I wouldn't really look at the high sixes, but you can see you want at least one 10K, one 9K. 8K isn't as confident with those projections, but also a 7. So that's basically how I'm gonna start my lineups: a 10, 9, and at least one 7. I do like the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 build. I probably will follow that, and if I'm doing 6K golfers, most of them will probably be the higher 6K range. And again, I mean, I'm looking at strength of field, so it's not just looking at how often it's happened in previous years. We're looking at this field and trying to determine, you know, the probability, basically, of that bucket being as successful as it has in the past. So yeah, 10, 9, 7 for sure, but for me, I'm still going to go that 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 route. And then the last one are strokes gained buckets. Now, I have a whole thing about strokes gained that I'll get into in another video. I'm not going to right now. To me, your most important stat is actually off the tee, because if you know anything about strokes gained stats, everything is dictated by the shot prior, or the shot that happened just prior to your next shot. So what I mean by that is, if you hit the ball from the tee into the fairway, you have you have less shots that you can gain on approach just by hitting it into the fairway and hitting it a long distance. But if you were to hit it in the rough, you actually have a higher chance, or you have a chance to have higher strokes gained on your next shot. And again, I'll explain this in a different video, but it all starts from off the tee. If you're good off the tee, you're most likely going to have less opportunities to gain on approach. But if you were to look at proximity stats of bombers versus good approach players, you're going to see, first of all, on average, those bombers are hitting shots closer to the green than those really good approach players. And proximity wise, they're probably really close to where they leave the ball on their next shot. Again, I'll explain this in a different video, but I start with off the tee and I look at putting stats. Now, putting stats are very random. I still like to include them with my off the tee stats. So your number one bucket are all stats positive. Your number two bucket's positive off the tee, positive putting, and one negative stat in between, whether it's approach or around the green. Same applies for strokes gained 3, but we're looking at positive off the tee, negative putting. Same applies for strokes gained 4, but that's negative off the tee, positive putting. And then strokes gained 5 is negative off the tee and negative putting and whatever stat in between. Could be all negative. There could be a positive approach. There could be a positive around the green. Doesn't matter. They're in that bucket if they have negative off the tee and negative putting. And then 6 are just no strokes gained. And I'm looking at the entire last year's worth of data. So when you look at this, you know, there's a good reason not to stock up on strokes gained 1 golfers. We have 10 in the field this year, and I'm only projecting somewhere between 1 to 3 inside the top 10. You've seen 0 show up inside the top 10 here. And at most, you've only had 1 in the optimal lineup. So if you're really chasing the optimal lineup, don't play more than 1 strokes gained 1 golfer. Now, there definitely can change. Again, I'm projecting somewhere between 1 to 3. So I wouldn't go strictly off these optimal lineup numbers. It's just historic data for you to see, to make your decisions based off of. Strokes gained 2, we're looking at 1 to 3 of those golfers as well. And strokes gained 3, we're looking at 1 to 4, almost 2 to 4. And it might change depending on who the golfers are that are coming in. That could bump up these numbers. They could. It's not going to bump up these numbers. This one actually has the chance to be 2 to 4, whereas right now it's 1 to 4, so it's kind of a large gap. And just to show you, we've seen at least 4 golfers from this bucket inside the top 10. We've also seen at least 2 inside the optimal lineup. So it's super interesting having a guy, you know, positive off the tee and negative putting. You know, if we were to look at those golfers just from a salary standpoint, they're going to be all the golfers here highlighted in yellow, because that's how my color coding is working. So you already have a bunch that are in the 9K range and higher. So Finau, Zalatoris, Koepka, Berger, Matsuyama, Thomas, they're all that strokes gained 3 bucket. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of them, but yeah, that's good company, especially to finish inside the top 10. So hopefully that gives you a couple leans where to start building your lineups. We just went through all the buckets pretty extensively, so we probably won't do this in the strategy video. Plus, we have a very short turnaround, so we'll go from, you know, I'll try to get a strategy video out sometime soon. I'm waiting for DraftKings to give me the player pool, the remaining golfers, so then I can actually package everything together properly with the tee times and the marquee tee time pairings. But currently I can't. So again, waiting on DraftKings for that information. And then I'll add the tee times to it. And we'll talk about, you know, our anchor plays tomorrow, or in the strategy video. We'll also talk about our marquee tee time pairings and then build some lineups. We won't have to talk about the buckets because we already did here. And I'll mention that in the strategy video to refer to this video. But that's all I have. We're chasing the optimal lineup. And again, the best way to do it, looking at these historical stats to try to figure out, you know, proper trends to follow. Last week, we were 26 out of 30 buckets. Like 26 out of 30 were correct. Unfortunately, those 4 that were incorrect were also part of the anchor lineups. We were on wrong sides of those. There were some that were more than our projections, and then there were some that were less than our projections. So that's actually been the worst week that I've had in, I think, dating back to the PGA Championship last year. So the buckets usually have 2 wrong. I mean, that's kind of what I've been averaging. So it's around like 95%, 93% is the number. I've been around 93% correct with my bucket projections. So I'm liking my chances this week. It does limit the amount of lineups you can create. It does limit the amount of players you want to anchor your lineups around, but it still offers a ton of different combinations that you can still build. So even though we can get 2 to 3, maybe even 4 golfers correct, we still got to get the other 2 golfers correct in order to take down a GPP and to hit the optimal lineup. So hopefully you guys can figure that out. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I hope we can do it for this Farmers Insurance Open. With that being said, just a reminder, again, giveaways, $20 on the line this week. I'm only running it this week for subscribers. Let me actually put that back on the screen. You win $20, be subscribed, comment below. We have to hit the goal of 275 subscribers. So if you're one of those that have not yet subscribed, we just need 4 more and we'll run this. One of you guys will have a chance to win $20. And then obviously Prize Picks, if you're not yet signed up, there's a link in the description below. Sign up using the promo code SweetSpot, put $20 in your account and you're automatically entered into that one. But I got nothing else for you guys, so I'm going to bid you adieu. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in that strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye.